Alvarado here. Hello, people. What's going on? There's been a lot of stuff going on lately, also in the media, that's been bugging the hell out of me, and that is this whole idea of fake news. Basically, all food, all news is really kind of fake because it's all man-made, and so of course people emphasize what they think supports whatever agenda is in the works, usually within lawmakers or government or the politically correct crowd that seems to dominate all aspects of media and celebrityville. you know, it's all about this weird agenda about, pushing narratives that. Anyways, so people are complaining that they can't tell the difference between fake news and real news. Again, moot point, but I'm here to help. I'm going to define a few terms that are very useful in understanding at least one aspect of information that's being presented to you, whether it's written information or whether it's spoken information, or whether it's just somebody giving a good old speech. I mean, I wish I could teach logical fallacies to everybody. That would really, really, really help a lot, but that's a long video, and I don't know if I feel like devoting enough time to do that to actually make it effective. So right now I'm going to cover three very simple words: ethos, pathos, and logos. Let's go ahead and take a look at those words and see what they mean and how can they help you determine what is the purpose or the motivation, let's say, of the speaker or the writer. Okay, so first of all, let's start off with ethos. These terms come from the Greek philosopher Aristotle. Again, so we're looking at concepts that go back about 25, 26, 2400 years, somewhere in there, quite a long time ago. Okay, so these things were figured out a long time ago by people. And of course, I realize that my camera is recording all this backwards, but if you're having difficulty understanding it, it's the letter E, T, H, O, and S. Okay? So it shouldn't be that difficult. Ethos, though, is credibility. It's the credibility of the speaker or the writer, okay? And now, by credibility, I mean, what's their background? What do they know? Are they an authority on the subject that they're speaking on? Are they a expert? Are they, what is their point? Why do they feel that they have this knowledge to impart upon somebody? Ethos is used as a way to show that the information or the story or the speech or whatever it is that's being presented has a backing, that the person that is speaking from a position of knowledge. Okay, so that can help right away. If you see the difference between, for example, someone like, let's say me, for example. Okay, now I have a master's degree in English. Okay, so I have some ethos in being able to teach in my field. But if I was going to go and try and offer a class in calculus, I have very little ethos. I have no room to stand on. I have no authority to speak from. Okay? And authority doesn't always mean anything either. Now, I always tell people, my students in particular, to always question authority figures. Never believe them simply because of them being in a position of power or authority over you, including teachers like myself. Question them. So ethos, of course, can be a good thing. They use this in advertising a lot. You'll hear these ads for, let's say, a pharmaceutical drug, and they're going to have the expert come out. The doctor is going to come out and speak. They're using ethos. Throughout this political campaign that we saw going on, one of the big uses of ethos was actually involving Hillary Clinton, because people were saying, well, look at her, she's got so much experience. She was Secretary of State, she was, what was she, a senator in New York. She was a first lady. Ooh, that's an impressive position. Anyways, but she's been a lawyer. So they were trying to basically attach a significant amount of ethos onto Hillary, simply because of the fact that she's been involved in government for so long. Now, of course, I would honestly say that yes, she seems to be a very experienced person in regards to politics, but she's also a cold-blooded murderer. So that's a whole other story. Look at Libya, right? Anyways. But ethos, again, is a very common technique. It's one of the three techniques. These are appeals. This is the way we appeal to the audience to try to get them swayed to our viewpoint or our opinion or perspective, or however you wish to phrase it. So ethos is a real common one in this culture, and it's something that we should all be aware of and keep an eye out for. Okay, so if you have a situation where somebody is speaking and yet has let me put it to you this way, it's the cliche. It is the unmarried marriage counselor. If somebody is speaking on a topic of which they have no experience, then obviously you're going to have to take it with a grain of salt, or at least examine their argument and determine whether maybe they don't have ethos, but the argument that they presented can stand on its own, is strong. Now, of course, when we move into that territory, we have to watch out for something else. There's other appeals. So, the next appeal that I'd like to look at real quickly is pathos. Pathos Pathos is probably the most common of the three appeals, okay? And all this is it's emotional. It is the emotional appeal, okay? And of course, you see this all the time in advertising. It's jingoism, it's patriotism, it's waving the flag. It's those commercials for starving children in Africa that you can help save for 5 cents a day. It's the dog pound ad or the ASPCA or whatever it is, where they show these miserable starving creatures. And how do you feel? Of course, it affects you emotionally. And of course, once you've been affected emotionally, many people will fall prey to that because they feel something. So it's designed that way because what do they want from you? Why do they want you to feel sadness or fear or patriotism or whatever it is? Because they have something in mind for you. They want your money, they want your vote, they want you to change your opinion, etc., etc., etc. So emotional appeals are very common in this culture. We see a tremendous amount of that in advertising. Again, that is just tremendously used in our culture all the time, okay? Anytime you hear somebody trying to, again, manipulate your emotion or have you have an emotional response to something that they're talking about or writing about or whatever, watch out, because that means there's some other agenda at work right off the bat. Because of course we all know that we usually make our worst decisions when we base our decisions on emotion, okay? So this is a really good way to get people to fall victim to various things. I mean, you could look at the different campaign slogans that we've seen over the last few years, or like going back to even Obama. Yes, we can. What does that mean? Anything? Imagine hope. Does it mean anything? No. But they fill you, the person who is exposed to these ideas, fills in the blanks. So imagine hope can be anything you want because both of those things are abstract. So whatever you think imagine hope means is what it means. What was Hillary? She had something like standing together. And now of course you can see how well that idea really sticks with these leftist people because they're tearing apart, they're interfering in other people's free speech by preventing people from going to the inauguration, things like that. Breaking people's property, rioting in the streets, setting things on fire, showing those darn trash cans who's boss. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And I realize it's a very small percentage of the people that are there. And I, for one, am a complete supporter, 100%, of free speech. I think everyone should have that right. But I'm going off subject now. But anyway, so pathos is the emotional appeal that you see all the time in advertising and in our culture in general. This is the easiest one to do. To appeal to someone's emotion is the lowest form of rhetorical appeal. And so I'm not a fan of that at all. And once people understand these terms, it will help them be more clear in their understanding. I mean, a lot of times when I've taught this in English studies or in literature or whatever, usually it's not a rhetoric class per se. It's more just an English class in general. But these are important concepts for people to realize because they can use them themselves. We all can use these appeals. They're not just something limited to people that are rhetorical or rhetorical people or people in political power, etc., etc., etc. These are things that are used by all of us to some degree. It's like when you cry about not getting your way, you're trying to appeal to the emotion. Mommy won't lend me the car keys, I'm sad, she hates me. It's emotional appeals. So these are very common. Finally, probably the rarest of the appeals and the one that, of course, is the best and strongest is logos. Logos appeal is logic. Okay. The logos appeal uses data, statistics, fact, etc., things that are verifiable in order to prove its point. So this is totally different than, for example, pathos, where you're just trying to use emotion. Now, of course, if you're a good person in, rhetorical debate or whatever, these are going to be used together. In other words, they can intertwine. They're not something that's just, I'm just using ethos or I'm just using pathos. An effective speaker would use all three, to some varying degree. Of course, the important thing to remember, though, is that the strongest of these is logos, because logos is how you form a argument. You form an argument through the use of logic. You know, so logos is probably in this culture probably the rarest one. You know, so when you hear people, I mean, and you see this all the time too. I was watching the news earlier, and you have people saying things like, again, this just to bring up Mr. Trump, but he's a homophobe, he's sexist, racist, and I'm trying to figure out where they got this information from. Where did they get this? Is it because he said that Mexicans send their worst people here? There have been many, 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 many cases of illegal immigrants being in this country who have committed horrible crimes, who have already been kicked out of the country, deported before, come back again, come back again, come back again, and cause all sorts of horrible things, rape, murder, etc. That's what his point was. The problem is he's not the most eloquent speaker, so sometimes when he speaks, I think people don't understand what he's saying exactly. He should have said some, or he should have said that there are problems with illegal immigrants, etc. That, etc. I'm not going to correct his rhetoric. Let's put it that way. But again, logos is based on logic, facts, statistics. Strongest of them all, in my opinion. And again, they can all be intertwined. So you might have a really good speaker who's coming from a really strong point of credibility. Let's say a professor in linguistics is giving a speech on linguistics. Well, great. He's got great ethos for that because that's his field. We would presume that this gentleman or woman or whatever would know their field. So they would be able to speak from somewhat of a position, again, of authority. And again, like I've already said, just because someone's in a position of authority does not mean that you swallow whatever they say without critically examining it, critically thinking about it, and questioning. But again, example of ethos, again, pathos, emotion, the kitty cat, the sad kitty cat, the poor children starving, fear, the evil Trump regime is going to throw us in concentration camps because we're LGBTQ, STUR, rah, 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 that kind of thing. It's all emotional based. There's no evidence to support any of that, but yet people are already buying into it, which tells you that they're not critically thinking. They're operating from Pathos. They're operating straight from Pathos. All those people protesting, operating from Pathos. Maybe some of them have some legitimate complaints, for example. Maybe they don't like some of the appointees that Trump's putting in, which I agree. Some of them are horrible, like that Sessions guy, for example. He's going to throw the drug war back into our faces again, possibly. But anyways, point is, again, Pathos emotional based. So, keep an eye out for these things. Logos, logic. Facts, data, statistics, you can verify these things. These are things, they really will enhance your argument if you can come from a statistical, like if you have statistical evidence to support your claim, and again, these are ways of forming your arguments. And again, these are just simply called rhetorical appeals. Okay. So anyways, I thought I'd go ahead and, just do a short, quick video on this. And I'm hoping that, this helps in some way out there in the world. Anybody who had any clues about that. So again, ethos, pathos, logos. Very important to know these rhetorical appeals. The 3 rhetorical appeals. Thanks, Aristotle. We miss you and we love you. And I'm sure that if you were alive today, you would wonder what happened to all the knowledge that you had acquired that you tried to transmit to us that now seems to have been pretty much forgotten. All right. This is Algarado signing off. Have a great day.